But not only this, you can learn from other people's mistakes. I call these people lighthouses. I'm a lighthouse. With this podcast, I'm trying to shine light on some of the mistakes that I've made. Don't crash into these rocks. Go this way instead. Whether you choose to do that or not is your business. But I'm trying to give the information I wish I had earlier. When I go to schools, I'm trying to give these students the information I wish I had when I was their age. You can learn from other people's mistakes. Welcome to the Prime Life Project podcast, a place to help you unlock your full potential, both mentally and physically, to become the best version of you. Welcome back to an episode of the Prime Life Project podcast. I'm your host, Daniel James, and today I want to talk about optimizing a growth mindset. Now, I think at the time of recording this, I'm on episode 189, potentially something around those, and it's something I've realized I've not spoke about before, which is very, very weird because I was talking to a group of students I was with last week about optimizing a growth mindset. And as I was talking through it, I thought this is actually integral to everything that I teach. Now, if you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to assume that you have a growth mindset. You actually want to learn. You're open to new information. But I think it's really important to actually understand the opposite of this, like the growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Like, what is the difference? Because it can be very, very frustrating in life when you've got this growth mindset, yet other people around you have this fixed mindset. It can become very, very frustrating and hard to relate to people. So for me, it's basically assessing both sides of this. So I wanted to address this today. I probably should have done this a very long time ago. So I apologize for the delay, but here we go. So optimizing growth mindset. So the opposite of growth mindset is a fixed mindset. And for me, they've got a core belief that everyone has a set amount of intelligence. So basically you're born and you have that set amount of intelligence. And if you struggle or make a mistake, it's because you aren't that smart. It's that simple. You mess up, and it's because you're stupid. That's essentially what it is. Now, this can obviously be programmed from a young age. Like when it comes to these mindsets, like we're not born with a fixed or growth mindset. It's something as we're growing up from the years 0 to 7 that we basically get programmed with. So you can see very, very easily how if a child is told they're stupid continually, they will think that every time they do struggle and they make mistakes, that it is because they're stupid, because that's what they've been told. Where actually, if you're using growth language to actually encourage this child to make these mistakes and almost fall forward, you have the opposite effect. But essentially, it just causes like fear and avoidance of doing things. And an analogy that I like to use when I'm talking about fixed mindset is essentially it's like you've been given a hand of cards in the game of life, and you think that you are stuck. So again, if you receive praise early on in school, etc., you will believe that you've been given an amazing hand. However, if you struggle on tests or get loads of challenges, then you'll believe that you've had a bad hand. So whatever you're born with, again, if it's great and you get loads of praise, then it's like, wow, you've got a good hand. Great, good job. But that can also be a problem because if you think you're amazing, you can then have a fixed mindset about that because you just think you're amazing and you already know everything. So having a fixed mindset, although you're actually very, very smart and you think you're very, very intelligent, can actually hold you back because then it stops you from wanting to actually learn and grow anymore. So it comes with like a bit of a caveat with it because again, you get a lot of kids from private school. They're constantly, again, not all the time, but you get a lot of it where at the private school, they're constantly told they're very, very smart, they're this, they're that. And then when they go into the real world, they struggle because they realize they're not actually as smart as they thought they were. They didn't have the real life skills. And because they've got this fixed mindset, they really, really struggle because they've never had to actually grow. They've never had to learn. They've never had to develop. But it's understanding that this fixed mindset can be a problem, but you avoid challenges and you lose interest very, very easily and you can stop trying. However, growth mindsets, again, which is, I'm going to assume is a lot of you guys listening to this, they believe that talent and intelligence aren't gifts and that you need to work for them. And with the right strategy and enough effort and time, you can do anything and get better at anything. They believe that you can always get smarter, so they're basically not afraid of being labelled stupid, because they believe they can get better at something. So if you try something new like playing the piano, it's like, you're absolutely trash at playing the piano. Someone with a growth mindset, like, well, yeah, I know, I've just started. Like, I'm going to get better. That's the difference. Where if someone with a fixed mindset starts playing the piano and says, you are rubbish at that, they're like, oh yeah, you're right. Like, I'm awful. I'm not going to get any better. Why should I try? I'm not naturally blessed with this. The growth mindset believes that even if you've have been dealt a bad hand, which a lot of people have, you can draw more cards from the deck of life until you have the hand that you want, until you have the cards that you want. And this is why it's so important. This is why when I'm talking schools, I'm so passionate about going to talk into the low income schools and kids that are really, really struggling. Because just because you may have been dealt a bad hand, You may have been growing in poverty. You may not have the opportunities that other people with financial, what's the word I'm looking for? Resources have. You still can change. That doesn't disqualify you. I think I might mention this in another podcast, but that actually qualifies you. The fact you've gone through some of these things actually qualifies you. The fact that you have struggled, the fact that you have seen such poverty, that actually qualifies you. Because you're going through all of this stuff, you're going to learn and develop other skills that people from this amazing background aren't going to have. You're going to have to develop people skills. You're going to have to have some resilience, which is one of the key things right now. A lot of people don't have resilience. So a lot of these students, when I'm talking to them, it's understanding that actually, no, this bad hand that you think you've been dealt, if we can just change that, if we can just change it from being a fixed thing of this is how I've always got to be to a growth mindset, that's where the magic occurs. And I always find that when I'm working with clients, the clients with the growth mindset are the ones that always get the best results. Whether we're talking about the mindset coaching or whether we're talking about the fat loss. The ones with the growth mindset are always the ones that get better results because they want to learn. They're like sponges. I know that I don't know everything and I absolutely love it. And the more that I know I don't know. Whereas actually in the past, I think I've used this story before. When I was at school, I had a history teacher in front of the whole class tell me that I was stupid and I'd never amount to anything in my life. And she was right. Because I then told myself that on repeat. So that became a belief. That was then programmed into me. That then gave me that fixed mindset. It's only actually when I realized something I was good at, that I realized that I could change, I could improve, I could develop. Because when I got good at one thing, it then transcended into other areas of my life. That's what a lot of people don't have. They can't put that two and two together because they don't think they're good at anything. They don't want to try new things. And actually, when you try something new, you could realize that actually you're very, very good at it. Now, 40 years ago, scientists believed that we were stuck with our brain's default wiring, and there was absolutely no room to improve. That was it. But modern science tells us that actually we can change our brain. We can actually physically grow parts of our brain. We can speed up the circuits in our brain, and we can rewire certain parts of our brain. So London taxi drivers, if you've ever been to London and got one of those black cabs, you will know how amazing these guys are. Like, in order to be a London taxi driver, you have to do so much research. There's tests you've got to pass about memorizing street names and all that sort of stuff. And these researchers did tests on these London taxi drivers, and they realized that they actually had a larger hippocampus. Now, the hippocampus is responsible for spatial awareness and memory. So isn't that interesting? The more demand that you put on the brain in a certain area, the more neurons were able to grow. That use it or lose it mentality. So these taxi drivers were using their hippocampus a lot. They were using their spatial awareness a lot. They were using their memory a lot. So that particular area of the brain improved. It grew. They weren't born that way, but not all brain regions can expand. But what we can do is we can make the circuits faster. Now, again, I probably should have researched the name of this. We've got the myelation, which is basically the body, basically researching that, the way to say it, I'm sure it's myelation, is the body's ability to lay down more myelin. Now, myelin is the brain cell insulation. So we've all seen that the wiring, if you get a plug socket, we've all seen the wires within the plug. Now, that the plastic coating outside of the wires, that is the insulation. But actually, what that does is if we can lay down more of this stuff, it means that we can transmit information 10 times faster. So actually, the brain, when you're putting it through certain stress, the brain can actually process information quicker. You get better at it. You know this is true as well. It's the same thing when you've learned to drive your car. When you first learned to drive your car, you were not good at it. The coordination, you were thinking constantly, right, I need to check in the mirror, I need to do this, I need to do this, indicate. But actually what happens is the circuits fire faster. They start to talk to each other. You then don't have to think about it. It becomes automatic. These are how habits are formed. So it's not just the fact that certain areas of the brain can actually grow. Actually, what can happen is these connections can get quicker. The brain can fire quicker. The neurons can fire faster. That is absolutely incredible. Now, you've also got parts of rewiring the brain. I'm not going to go too much into this because, again, that's going down a different path. But there's different things where essentially you can sort of rewire the brain. If one area is not working so well, you can get another part of the brain to function as well. But the point is, 40 years ago, they didn't believe this was possible. Which is why maybe your parents or your grandparents may have a very fixed mindset, a fixed view on something. Maybe they grew up and they were a coal miner, or they grew up and they were a receptionist, or they grew up and they were a business person, and that's it. They were good at it, that was it. And they're not good at maths, and that's it. They'd have a very, very fixed mindset. But actually, when you can cultivate this growth mindset, that opens you up to so much more. So how do we then actually optimize this growth mindset? Because maybe you've got some kids and you're thinking, well, how do I make sure that my kids do grow up with a growth mindset? Or maybe you're stuck somewhere in the middle. Because when I did this with my clients, I basically got them to take a test. You can do tests online and basically say, do you have a fixed or growth mindset? Because you can have a balanced mindset as well, where some areas you're fixed in and some areas you've got more of a growth mindset, which I don't think necessarily is a bad thing. But the goal should be to be pushing on a spectrum more towards a growth mindset. So how do we actually optimize it? So we need to prioritize learning over seeking approval. Having other people be impressed with your hand of cards isn't going to help you improve them. You've always got to be looking at learning, always looking at improving, rather than just be like, oh, look how amazing this is, and settling. Because the world is always changing. Nothing stays the same. So if you're sat there with this deck of cards thinking, I've got it all sussed, this is it, I'm done, guess what? The world's going to change. We've seen this when it comes to businesses. Look at Blockbuster. Blockbuster were on every single street corner. They were the top dog. They thought that their deck of cards was it. And then Netflix came around. They had a fixed mindset and they went out of business because they weren't willing to actually open their minds. They had a very fixed mindset. You can see this with other things as well. Dell, I think, is a big one, or Hewlett Packard, one of those two. I think mainly Dell. They had a massive thing as well. You also had Canon or Nikon, one of the two, where, again, they were the camera people. You had Nokia as well when it comes to phones. You see it in massive industries. They sit there and they think that they've got it nailed down, and they don't allow themselves the ability to actually grow anymore. They sit there and just seek approval. Oh, we've got this. It's amazing. Our business is doing amazing. Okay, well, what happens in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, 5 years' time? Always prioritize learning. Number 2, be willing to actually make mistakes and experience challenges. Because this is how you upgrade those deck of cards. It's like playing that game of Pokemon. How do you get better? You take on the better trainers. You take on the better trainers and then you update your Pokemons and you get better and better and better and better. That's how this works. You want to embrace these mistakes. You want to embrace the challenges. Again, shock on any other computer game, not just Pokemon, any computer game, if you've ever played it, the better you get, the more bosses you beat, the better equipped you become. That is how life works. You want to be willing to actually make mistakes and experience these challenges. Don't shy away from them. It feels very, very uncomfortable. But I promise you, when you actually go through the other side, the growth is absolutely awesome. But not only this, you can learn from other people's mistakes. I call these people lighthouses. I'm a lighthouse. With this podcast, I'm trying to shine light on some of the mistakes that I've made. Don't crash into these rocks. Go this way instead. Whether you choose to do that or not is your business. But I'm trying to give the information I wish I had earlier. When I go to schools, I'm trying to give these students the information I wish I had when I was their age. You can learn from other people's mistakes. The universe is always giving you clues. It's always telling you, you've got to be aware, listen out. Friends, family members, just listen. If they're making mistakes, obviously go and support them, but understand, not going to make that same mistake again. So you don't even have to make that mistake yourself, but just look around. There's opportunity to grow absolutely everywhere. And here's another one. Learn to receive constructive criticism. I see them as teachable moments. And I absolutely love this, where you can actually grow when someone says stuff to you. And I used to absolutely hate criticism. Even the word, it just makes me feel a bit sick in my stomach. Because I always relate it back to my dad giving me criticism when I was in goal. Now, again, he was trying to help me, but at the time, again, I had a very fixed mindset on this. I wish I paid more attention, because I probably would have been a better goalkeeper. I was so resistant to actually receiving that constructive criticism. But when people are giving you criticism, even if it's someone that you hate, how powerful is this? Someone that you absolutely hate in the office gives you some criticism. It may not be constructive, okay? They're doing it in a just purely critical way. If you can take that bit of information and say, is there any truth in what they are saying that I can actually use to learn, grow, develop, and get better, then the person that you dislike the most has then actually helped you level up and get better. How cool is that? That's a good way to get some revenge on someone. Revenge, quote unquote. To actually use that negativity and turn it into positivity. Rather than sitting on the negativity, sitting on the criticism, taking it personally, being like, wow, is there actually anything here that I can use to actually learn? Because they're saying it's trying to hurt me. If I can use my growth mindset to be like, right, is there something in here that I can actually take to take this negative experience and turn it into a positive? That is absolutely huge. And it's cultivating a bit of grit, perseverance. Keep going through the adversity. I've talked about this before. Be a weed, not an orchid. When times get tough, understand you've got to thrive and survive. The only way to do that is to develop that growth mindset, develop that courage, develop that confidence. Every single person can grow their cognitive ability. Every single person. And there'll be some areas of your life where you are really, really growth mindset orientated, but in others you're really, really fixed. Maybe in business or when you go to work, you've got a great growth mindset. You're open to learning, developing because you want to get more money, go up the pay grades, whatever it is, get into a high position. But maybe when you go home into your family, you've got a really fixed mindset. You've got a really, really fixed mindset and you're not willing to shift or budge or trying to actually improve that relationship with your partner or your kids. No, this is the way I've always done it. This way my dad taught me. So this is how it's done. And you're not willing to actually shift. You're not willing to actually have that growth mindset, to actually cultivate a better environment for your relationship and your kids. You know that you can get smarter because I've just told you. So if you didn't know, now you know. But what you can do with this information? Are you going to play ignorant? Are you going to stay ignorant? Are you going to use ignorance as an excuse? Because once you understand this information, you now can't use ignorance as an excuse. Maybe you didn't actually know the brain can carry on developing. You see old people now that are learning piano and all sorts. Brain plasticity, neuroplasticity, Google it. It's a real thing. The fact that the brain can still grow and expand and develop, even as an older age. Obviously, other factors go into this, but it happens. You don't get to a certain age and start to deteriorate. You only start to deteriorate when you believe that you deteriorate. There's 18, 90-year-olds out there that are so switched on and cognitively smart, and yet you get 60, 70-year-olds that think their brain's in decline, so guess what? They start to play up to that. They play up to that belief. Again, you become your thoughts. You become what you think about. What are you thinking about? Are you thinking about the opportunity, or are you thinking about all the negativity? There's always opportunity in absolutely everything. What is this challenge trying to teach me? What is this challenge trying to show me? As always, absolutely love you guys. If you took any value from today's show, don't forget to like and share it with a friend. See you guys next week.